Three massive intercity derbies, the beginning of a new era in North London, and Decision Day in MLS. And that's just the appetizers. There's a lot to get through, and Jimmy Conrad, Heath Piers, and James Bench are here to help it break it all down. Qué Golazo weekend preview begins right now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Qué Golazo, our weekend preview. Thank you so much for being part of the family. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, do us a favor and leave a Qué Golazo rating and review. It only takes a few seconds and it helps us to continue to make great free episodes like this one. We continue to grow on podcasts and we're now past 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you so much. And our esteemed cast, Jimmy Conrad, Cruz Azul in the house. How are you, bud?
Yeah, no, showing respect to the team from Mexico that was most like Spurs until they finally won a trophy this past season. So I thought I'd show them some love, even though we're going to be talking about MLS Decision Day. I wanted to show some love to a Mexican league team.
I love it. It's a sexy shirt. I like it a lot. Heath Piers, what's up, man?
I'm good. I think it's a little bit weird that Jimmy has this whole Spurs thing until you're not. Isn't that everyone's starting point until you're not?
Okay,
No.
Here we go.
No, I think James Bench is never Spurs until you're never, right, James Bench? Yeah, he's shaking his head.
ever Spurs. But I'm going to see them tonight. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, absolutely. As we're taping this, by the way, ahead of Antonio Conte's first game, James Bench, you looking forward to that one?
I'm really excited. I mean, he's hardly ever met these guys before, so he's going to terrify them, isn't he? Just like,
but he watched the documentary, James Bench. He says he watched it, so he knows these players, which is amazing. And they're going to come out like win 7-0. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, my favorite thing is there was a video, I think, from Sky Sports on the day that Antonio Conte was announced, and players coming to training on his first day of training, and they were speeding. They were like, we can't be late. We got to get there. I think Human Son slept over in the training ground the night before as well. But welcome, everybody. Qué Golazo weekend preview, our biggest episode of the week. Jimmy Conrad, Heath Piers, and James Bench. We are here to guide you through the action as we look ahead to the final weekend of domestic action before the international break. And we begin in Manchester. The Manchester Derby. It's an early kickoff on Saturday as Manchester United, fresh from saving themselves. Well, Ronaldo saving Manchester United from Atalanta against Manchester City. Rafael Varane, by the way, is out for a month. So already we know that there are problems. But this is a big, big game. United against Manchester City. So many narratives. Let's begin with you, Jimmy Conrad. You came here first. Talk to me.
I just don't see how Manchester United are going to win this game, especially without Rafael Varane, who I thought was the most important piece to them playing a back three, which was a new shiny look that Ole Gunnar was bringing to the table against the Spurs team that were obviously a little vulnerable and weren't prepared for those tactics, which really nobody was expecting to see with Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw being the wing backs. Now, Atalanta, we've seen this before. We're really troubled by the back three, and we're a little unlucky they didn't get all the 3 points. Ronaldo doing what he does, scoring big goals in the Champions League. When you play against Man City, who are also going to be like, yeah, all right, whatever, and without Varane, I just think it's going to be really difficult. Can you really expect this Manchester United team, who are going to play Fred and McTominay as a double pivot, and only maybe have 3 attacking players if they elect to go with the back three? So you have the 2 wing backs, but Lindelof might be hurt here as well. So you have Bailly and Lindelof and Maguire's your choice. It's thin. It's thin in the back line there. And I just feel like if you're going to really rely on Cavani, Ronaldo, and Bruno Fernandes to do it, maybe they get a goal, but I don't see them winning the game. And I just feel like you're going to have a false nine of either Phil Foden or Kevin De Bruyne that can play there. And that takes a lot of discipline from those center backs that we already know are a little shaky as it is, having to hold their ground and not get caught, not taking the bait of going into midfield and allowing gaps to open up behind them for those other runners to run through. So I think it's going to be a long 90 minutes for Manchester United fans. I apologize, but I like Man City to really do the business here. I just think they are a tremendous team, especially coming off a big win against Club Brugge.
I mean, following on from what Jimmy says, maybe what Manchester United fans need to do is recalibrate their idea of what winning might be in this game. 3 points isn't a victory. losing 1-0. That might be enough for them, mightn't it? Really, Jimmy's hit the nail on the head with one thing that I don't know how they're going to line up a defence, because there aren't the bodies for a back three. I think it was reported by the Telegraph that Harry Maguire was rushed back at least 10 days before he was supposed to play, so that he could be on the field against Leicester a few weeks back. And you can really tell. You can see in everything he does that he is just not there. He's not fit enough, and obviously, because he's playing day in, day out, he's not really had a chance to build up that fitness. So what do you do? A back three of Bailly, Maguire as the anchor, and then Luke Shaw, who I don't think has ever really played as a centre-back in a back three, or Wan-Bissaka? I mean, what's so worrying, I think, from a United perspective, is this is the perfect team, playing better than ever, I think, at making space for runners from midfield. They haven't got that focal point. But equally, that means that everything is, you have to be wary of every single player. I mean, I was looking at some Jack Grealish tape, and everyone's been very critical of Grealish because he's not scoring, he's not assisting. But what he's doing is he's making so many channels in that inside left position for a Gundogan, a Silva, a Cancelo to burst into, because they are dragging defences as wide as they can pull them. However many players United put back, I just can't imagine they can plug all the gaps that are going to appear, whether it's McTominay and Fred in front or Matic or whoever. I really can't see much beyond a quite convincing City win here, which probably, based on the way United play, means that they're going to win this somehow, because as we always say, Luis, this isn't about football, this is about vibes. This is about
vibes. Heath Pierce vibes.
Yeah. Look, as I've been thinking through this, what James and Jimmy both said are spot on, and at least the way that I see it. And I was trying to think, like, maybe there's a different approach that I can take here. Maybe there's another angle where I can get Man United into this conversation. And then
you could go with stats, Heath, as I let you continue. Manchester United are unbeaten in their last 4 league games against Man City. Does that help you?
Yeah, it also helps that Raheem Sterling, I don't believe, has ever scored against Manchester United. Unfortunately, he's not even first choice in this City side anymore. And with, as Jimmy mentioned, with KDB or Phil Foden playing in that false nine, I just don't see how they can match up against that, especially when Man City move the ball very quickly in transition. They're just going to open up. And again, as Benj mentioned with Jack Grealish, there's sort of becoming this, and we saw this with Antony with Ajax in the Champions League. When you have a player that can just create overloads because they have to pull so many players over, it's really hard to keep a balanced team. And I think Manchester United have really struggled to be a balanced team because they don't seem to have this well-oiled machine where there's this, go back to just youth grassroots soccer of pressure, cover, balance. When one goes, then there's just this automatic movement after. It seems like a player half goes and then everyone gets stuck in between these lines. And Man City will eat that up all day long. And you do that even in the first few minutes, and you start to get frustrated. And now you start to have players arriving late. And then when you look at the front three that have to be the first line of defense in their press with Cavani and Ronaldo and Fernandes, I just don't see how there's somewhere around the field where United can win a battle and say, okay, this is where we're going to win the ground game, and from here we're going to build out of that. So overall, I think it's just too strong for Manchester City. As I say this, I just go back to whatever Ben just says, which of course that means Man United are going to win, but I'm confident that Man City are gonna hold on to this one.
Yeah, well, the first opening goal from Manchester United against Atalanta was, we were asking ourselves, why don't they do this more often? Well, Man City does it literally for 90 minutes, so that's probably the problem there. And not forgetting that Man City, by the way, are third in the Premier League right now and still looking up 5 points behind Chelsea. So it's not like they want to do Manchester United, their bitter rivals, any favors. Before we move on and I ask Jimmy Connor for the betting tips, I just want to read a very quick intro paragraph from the amazing Jonathan Liu from The Guardian. It was after the Manchester United equalizer. I mean, the draw against Atalanta. Everything that basically we've been echoing. But if you know Jonathan Liu, you know he's a very good writer, etc. But, I think this just really typifies everything about United. The genius of modern Manchester United is that for all the attention lavished upon them, for all the granular analysis they attract, they remain a largely unknown quantity. Keep going. They are the hyperactive toddlers of English football, equally capable of moments of startling insight and unfettered joy as they are of throwing valuable household ornaments into the toilet. I think that's perfect. They're literally so inconsistently unavailable. We don't know what they're going to give us, Jimmy Conrad. We just think that they're the complete opposite of Man City, which we know exactly what that is. So give me your betting
actually, I want to go to bench really quick because I'm hearing that Jadon Sancho, something's going on with him. So give me that insight before I give any betting tips, Bench.
Yeah, I'm wondering, is he the priceless heirloom that's been thrown into the toilet?
Absolutely. Well, they have a few, but he's one of them, right? Yeah.
This is maddening. This is everything about, what Jonathan was saying there and what so many United observers say. They signed Jadon Sancho to play at right wing. The guy never plays there, and now he never plays at all. And, just breaking news as we record this, he's been dropped from the England squad. This is Jadon Sancho. This is a player that was one of the half dozen best attackers in Europe over the last 2-3 years. And you would think,
James, as you continue that point, and you would think Sancho's dropped because he's not seeing minutes, not because of him, I guess, right?
Yeah, his form isn't great though. His form hasn't. He doesn't.
But he doesn't see the field, though, Heath. Like it's not enough. It's not enough.
Yeah. He's a more expensive Donny Van de Beek. Let's just be honest. And
who's another very good player. We're talking about
Cristiano Ronaldo ruined Jadon Sancho. Yeah. That's all.
When Jadon Sancho didn't get his transfer, also you saw the emotional side. He went into a dip of form for a while, and you can see that he obviously prides himself on that form and that belief, and having a clear head. And I think at this moment, whether he's playing or not. And listen, I've spent plenty of time on a bench before to know the emotional ups and downs of not playing, and it sucks. But that's where a little bit's on him. I would say, because he's not having fantastic performance. But the rest is storm. I blame Ronaldo.
Yeah, continue, James Bench.
Yeah, a lot of it is Ronaldo, but I don't know what the solution is here, because if he sticks with this 3-5-2, there is never going to be a spot for Jadon Sancho in this team, except as, Callum Hudson-Odoi Mark II. This is the sign of no joined up thinking, because you have a system that excites you with a Cavani or whoever up top, Rashford and Sancho flanking them. And then you throw it all out because it's fun and exciting to buy Cristiano Ronaldo and it gets engagement, and you didn't need him, but hey, it's cool. It's great fun, and Ole can work out how to fit all these pieces together. Oh, what's that? He can't. Well, actually, I don't know how many managers could anyway. This is maddening. You've signed one of the best young players in the world, and you've sidelined him for a world-class player who has 2-3 years left of his prime at absolute most.
Yeah, what's really funny? I know that Jimmy's going to end with betting tips, but I'm looking at the table, and if they win, they go join points with Man City. I mean, I know that we're going crazy here, but it's so weird, Jimmy Conrad.
It is weird. I do want to kind of tack on this one stat to bring up a stat. Only Jose Mourinho and Jurgen Klopp have beaten Pep Guardiola more times than Ole Gunnar. But I just don't see how it's going to happen in this one, outside of CR7 putting the team on his back once again and salvaging a point. If they're going to get anything out of this game, it's because they salvaged something. It's not because they played an aesthetically pleasing way, that they're all organized and on the same page. They are super individualistic. It's been a big thing with United since Ronaldo showed up. I like Man City to win this one in over 2.5 goals, plus 130. I think that's the safest and smartest bet you can make in this game.
Well, if they do that, they go above Liverpool. If Liverpool, of course, don't win against West Ham, which we'll get to in a second. But let's move on here and let's continue in the Premier League as we talk Tottenham. Antonio Conte, his first Premier League match at home to Everton and Rafa Benitez. This is going to be their 6th meeting. By the way, Conte has won 3 of those, lost 2 and then a draw. So Heath Pierce, talk to me about this game. Oh, it's away at Everton. Is it at Goodison Park? Let me just confirm.
That's correct.
Yeah, well, there you go. I don't think it matters at this point for Everton. They just need to do something because it's really dreary. They were saying Rafa out after the loss to Wolves. How do you see this game? Antonio Conte, Rafa Benitez, Tottenham, Everton, Heath Pierce.
Yeah, I was trying to think about, for Antonio Conte, what's the best situation or scenario for him to step into, right? Is it an easy match against a Norwich or a Watford? I'm not saying they're easy, but is it to step into that situation where you know that your team is the better team and should win this? Or is it a more complicated one where he can immediately start to tinker with the team, right? There's 2 approaches where he can have the wait and see and sort of go with what you've got so far and sort of see how they do and see how they just naturally react to a new manager. You made the joke about them arriving to training. That's the actual realities of a new coach coming in. As it hits that reset button, accountability goes back up. the trust has to go back up. Players that have been out of form have to step up. Other players who haven't been getting the looks that they want now get an opportunity to look to get a new and fresh look in front of a manager. So I think it does reset all of that accountability. And so when I look at this match against Everton, it's another opportunity for him to learn from this side, to see how they react to him and respect to him. And we've seen that in the past. You see, we only really ever talk about when new manager comes in, and then we fly the team to the moon in terms of just the response. And you go, oh, it was just the manager's fault. We got rid of him and now everything's better. Or you just sort of see with a Manchester United, which we saw through the years of just sort of getting incrementally better and ups and downs and ebbs and flows. And so this is one that I think is an important one for him. I don't know if they'll get the result, though, against this Everton side, because Everton are certainly up for it. And that's, you want to go and punch this new manager in the mouth, and you're playing at Goodison Park. And so overall, I think it's not the best scenario. And I do think a Spurs going into a team where they could show that level of flair or that level of, which they have in the Europa League. But, I guess the point that I'm trying to get at is I don't think this is going to be an easy one for Antonio Conte to step into. He barely knows the squad, barely knows this team, and it's going to be on these players to lead this to the result, and less so what he can do in this 48-hour window to prep them.
Yeah, what I'll say is the last time one of the quote-unquote big clubs in the Premier League made a change mid-season was Chelsea, with Thomas Tuchel taking over for Frank Lampard. And when Tuchel first came in, I think at least we remember it because we live this every day, he was very pragmatic, and I felt like he started from the back to the front. He wanted to make sure everything was locked down behind the ball, and they didn't give up a lot of goals, but they weren't scoring or even creating that many opportunities either. And I feel like Antonio Conte sees the game in a very similar way. I got to lock things down in the back. Spurs, maybe they don't give
Who's
up.
locking it down in the back at Spurs, Jimmy?
But it's not even about players. It's about numbers, right? And I think that what Tuchel did very well is, let me get my 3 best center backs on the field. Let me get my 2 wing backs to pretty much play in a back line of 5. Get 2 amazing holding midfielders, and Chelsea have all these parts, so it made it a little bit easier. Maybe Tottenham doesn't, but I think there's maybe quantity over quality at this point to get the job done. Now, they play at home against Vitesse in the Conference League today. We don't know the result yet, but they have a game midweek, and Everton doesn't. I think that plays into Everton's hands. So there could be some tired legs there. And Everton, if you look back at their last few games, they lost to Wolves in the last one, 2-1, but it was 1 on a set piece. I think you can control that stuff. It has nothing to do with talent, just desire. And the other one was a bad back pass. Other than that, they were in the game. They created enough opportunities to get a result. And then against Watford the week before, they were up 2-1 with 25 minutes to go. And then Joshua King decides to bang in a couple goals, and they lose 5-2. I mean, they just completely capitulated at the end of the game. Again, things that I think they can control. So now if I'm Rafa Benitez, I'm looking at it the same way. Dude, we got to tighten some shit up in the back because it's just way too leaky, and we're just not concentrated in key moments. So you have 2 coaches thinking the same way, and you got Spurs with some tired legs. I just think this could be a low-scoring draw. That's where I wanted to go. Thanks for having me.
James Bench, before you talk, I called Spurs Europa League, and I shouldn't have their Conference League. Just before you start thinking, I'm willing to give them.
You were promoting Tottenham already.
Before you think they win it. Yeah, I said, you're always Spurs until you're not. I just wanted to clarify that.
You Spurs yourself on Spurs. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, James Bench.
I mean, everything the guys have said, very true. And obviously, Luis, you and I spoke at great length about Conte in a pod that you can listen to elsewhere. Don't listen to the second half about Unai Emery, because that didn't happen.
And throw just proverbial darts on it. Yeah, go ahead, James.
I mean, obviously the really intriguing thing that may change Spurs dramatically is if Harry Kane can really be motivated to play under Antonio Conte. And I think it's fair to say he was a little bit underwhelmed with the appointment of Nuno. He certainly played like he was underwhelmed with life playing under Nuno. Conte's spoken about what he would do with a player like Harry Kane before, move him into the penalty box, kind of cut his addiction to dropping deep, which has been really good for Tottenham in the past. But if you look at how we think he might set up a team with Lo Celso and Ndombele, possibly like at least one, possibly both of them in midfield, if they can get to the stage where Kane doesn't need to do all the creative work and he can just start enjoying scoring goals, that can take Tottenham an awful long way. What Jimmy said is really true, though. I think we know that Rafa can turn this Everton team into a horrible team to play against. He'll just squeeze the spaces, 2 banks of 4, hit them on the counter with Townsend and Gray.
Which is what happened in the second half against Wolves, yeah.
Yeah, and it worked. And that's the thing, is it's worked for a lot of this season. And we know that Rafa, because of his Liverpool links, he gets no time. He gets no patience from Everton fans. But don't forget, it is scarcely a month ago that his team were outplaying Man United, doing really well on the counter. This Everton team works. And yeah, I would only echo what Jimmy says. I think this will be gritty, grindy, maybe kind of lean towards Spurs in the end, because they've just got better players to put the ball in the net. And if they're engaged, I think Tottenham wins.
Yeah, it's very even in the table as well. Obviously, Tottenham in 9th, Everton in 10th. Tottenham only a point above that, and it's very tight. Obviously, the differential in points all the way up to 5th, where Manchester United lies. Before I go to Jimmy Conrad, just some other things to think about. Rafa Benitez is not, as James Bench mentioned, getting any patience from Everton fans. So this win, as big as it is for Tottenham and Conte arriving, is as important for the Toffees. Jimmy Conrad, what do you think?
I like the draw. I said it before. I'll say it again. Plus 230, I think, is really good value. Pretty split. You could go on either side if you were feeling one way or another. It looks like Bench is thinking Spurs can do the business. They've only scored 9 goals in their 10 games. So I guess they're due at some point to have somewhat of an explosion, right? Even Norwich at some point, I think, is probably going to put a couple of goals into the back of a net against one particular team. Maybe not. I don't know. The Canaries are kind of bad right now. But I just feel like, as Bench mentioned, Tottenham having so many quality attacking options, at some point something should unlock. But this Everton team, it's going to be tough. I like a 1-1 draw here, maybe even 0-0, which isn't that exciting, but that's what Rafa Benitez does. He sucks all the fun out of watching the game.
And that could very well happen. Everton have won just one of the last 17 Premier League games against Tottenham. It doesn't have to be a loss, but a draw could be in the cards. Let's keep going here in the Premier League. This is a good one. West Ham against Liverpool. David Moyes against Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp has never lost against David Moyes. By the way, James Bench talked to Sadio Mane. Quick on that. How was that, James Bench?
Oh, it was great. A player in real strong form, really enjoying life. And I think one of the really notable things, he understands, you get those quotes, don't you, where a player says, oh, it's not about the personal accolades. It's all about team success. Sadio gets that it is about the personal accolades, because that's how you get team success. Liverpool are going to be really successful if Sadio Mane gets loads more scoring titles, like the 100 Premier League goals he got. So, great interview. You can read that on cbssports.com. If I could briefly jump over to the game as well.
Yeah, that's why I asked you, my friend.
I'm really excited for this game, because we're seeing a team that have really developed impressively over the last few months and look like they're coalescing into something fearsome against one of the best teams in the league this year. So I'm really excited. Can Liverpool actually prove what they can do against top Premier League opposition in the form of West Ham United? Little stat on that. Which team would you think Luis Miguel Echegaray has more points in 2021?
I mean, just by the nature of the question, I obviously naturally you go Liverpool, but it is West Ham.
It is indeed 62 points. Chelsea have 66.
Wow.
This West Ham team, I think we still think of them as a bit of a curio. We think that Michail Antonio is going to stop being one of the best strikers in the Premier League. Well, he's been doing that ever since David Moyes came back. Declan Rice, this isn't some sort of brief spell of a brief hot streak. He is one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. Thomas Souček too. Great attacking options, solid defense. You have to kind of favor Liverpool because they're Liverpool and they're scoring goals for fun, especially on the road. But I think this is going to be one of the toughest tests they've had all season, up there with Chelsea, up there with Man City. This is a really hard game and a tough place to go.
I fully agree. I mean, I think Liverpool will win this match. I think they realize that these are the kinds of matches, especially at this point in the season, that they have to be able to win. This is where they have to have some of their most complete performances. Unfortunately, it's against the West Ham side that are also have their own ambitions and their own goals. As you mentioned, James, with the amount of points they have, it's not a fluke. A lot of times you go into the season and go, when is it going to wear off? We're seeing that with Brighton Hove Albion. We're seeing that with Brentford in terms of, they're starting to settle in, right? Like it's starting to bring it to a simmer. But West Ham obviously go far beyond that and go into earlier in the year. And so I think Liverpool are still too strong in the attack. I think they're going to get their goals. It's just whether or not you can stop Mikel Antonio in that back line, whether or not you are tuned into that, and Benrahma and Bowen. Can you actually neutralize them enough to be able to play your game? We know that Liverpool are going to get their chances. We know that Liverpool front three, regardless of what front three they roll out, are going to score. And again, I go back to what I said yesterday on the show, which is Liverpool only need a chance, and you can feel when they go in these waves. It's literally like it's coming from the training ground, where it's one pass in, next pass out, and then now all of a sudden the darting runs. It's like everything feels like a set play for them. The movements, it's almost lacks fluidity because of the efficiency of it. It's like they know where the goals come from, and that's really hard to stop right now. And again, I go back to saying that the only way that West Ham can stay in this is if they can punch on the other end with their attacking lot. But I think this is going to be too much, and Liverpool are going to take this one.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same way. Liverpool 25 games unbeaten in their last 6 against West Ham, 5 wins and a draw. But to what Benj was saying before, this season and maybe even this calendar year feels a lot different for the Hammers. If they hadn't lost at home to Brentford a month ago, they'd actually be 1 point above Liverpool at this particular moment. I mean, that just, again, speaks to their quality on both sides of the ball. And I want to give a shout out to their defensive side. We talk about Mikel Antonio and Declan Rice, but they've given up 0 goals in their last 5 games, which included holding Man City to 0 goals in the Carabao Cup, where they ended up winning in penalties. And that needs to be taken into consideration, because when even Heath, when we talk about kind of our teams in the past, there's some kind of camaraderie that and pride that comes into getting clean sheets, going out there and I'm going to go out and do my job and let's make it happen. And that collective feeling makes a big difference. So I feel like Liverpool are going to run into a West Ham team that are full of confidence and an understanding of how they should move on both sides of the ball, which is going to be tough. However, Liverpool are different gravy. Let's be honest. I thought they were superb midweek against Atleti. Didn't give up any shots on goal to one of the best teams in La Liga and really stifled it. I know Griezmann didn't play, but Suarez had a lot to play for and didn't show up. Mohamed Salah, though, didn't get a goal or an assist against Atleti. That's the first time he had a goal or an assist in a game in like 10 or 11 straight games. That's insane. He still played well, and he still occupied and took away a lot of players, which opened up space for Trent Alexander-Arnold to hit in the deep crosses. He got 2 assists. I like Mo Salah to get to find another place. He's going to hit the back of the net. I'm taking a flyer on this game. We'll go straight to my bets. Mohamed Salah to score and Liverpool to win either 2-0, 2-1, or 3-1. They have to have those 3 score lines. Mohamed Salah to score, and that pays plus 450. I'm going to take a flyer on that one just to have some fun with some prop bets.
That's fantastic. Great insight from all 3. And this is, as James Bain said, is going to be the biggest test for Liverpool, definitely in the Premier League. And to Jimmy's point, Liverpool are flying. And by the way, Liverpool have scored 19 goals in their first 5 away Premier League matches. Only 2 other teams in history of the league have done more. So they don't care if they're at Anfield or not, but this is going to be a really tough test. Heath Pierce, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I had my hand up. I just want to point out that I'm also really in on this game because it's 8:30 Pacific time on a Sunday, which is not the same time as the kickoff of the Manchester Derby at 5:30 a.m. on a Sunday. So just out of respect for the timing, and my sleep, this is one I'm excited
West Coasters are definitely happy. That's 11:30 Eastern, and of course, and actually, it's good because that Sunday the clocks go back in the US. So finally, we sync once again with Europe, because it was really annoying for a week. I'll tell you right now, if you work in this environment. All right, well, let's look at the rest of the Premier League matches here, Des Norris, as we see what's going on. Southampton was Aston Villa on Friday. Let's keep going. Manchester United against Man City early on Saturday. Brentford host Norwich. Chelsea against Burnley. Crystal Palace with that great win against Man City. They host Wolves, who are high flying right now. Brighton at home to Newcastle. So that you have it. Anything in particular there, Jimmy Conrad, that you like?
I have Ivan Toney in my fantasy team, so I want him to bang at least 3 goals against Norwich, and if he doesn't, I'll be extremely disappointed.
He's been pretty quiet recently, goal-wise.
He's due.
Yeah, he's definitely due. James Benj?
Yeah, I just want to have a moan, really. This is very UK-centric moan as well. But obviously this week in Glasgow, we're hosting COP26. A lot of talk about what sport can do to help with the climate crisis. One thing sport could do is not ask Aston Villa fans to go to Southampton at 8 o'clock on a Friday night when there's no way back. Newcastle fans to do pretty much the same at Brighton. I'm going to be one of the people trying to get out of the London Stadium. I'm delighted for Heath that he doesn't have to get up too early to watch it. But there's going to be a lot of Liverpool fans trying to get away from the London Stadium on Sunday who are going to discover that there's about 1 train an hour to Liverpool and that they've got next to no chance of sitting down. Yeah. This really does drive me mad, because it's not just a climate change thing that people drive or people, do whatever, got private jets, however they get there, but also just that it's really rubbish for away fans. And I know that people watching the Premier League in the States, one of the great things that makes it such a good TV product is that you do have that, home away rivalry and that home away banter that you can hear through the TV speakers. So please, away fans, just please could the Premier League and broadcasters just try to consider where these people are coming from, because Brighton to Newcastle, I know that for Americans it sounds like nothing, but it's probably like a 5-hour drive.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but you're right. It's nothing for Americans when you consider Californian tag. Anyway, Heath Pierce, some thoughts from the Premier League.
I'm just excited about the Brighton Newcastle game for Newcastle's sake. Brighton are on a little bit of a dip. Well, yeah, I mean, Newcastle down at the bottom, and Jimmy doesn't have to say this, but it's an opportunity to get a result. Brighton, I think, are winless in their last 6 matches, and Newcastle are Newcastle. So if there's ever a time,
are they winning?
Stop giving me any hope.
Also,
here. I'm not taking this bait.
Brighton are my new Crystal Palace. Since Crystal Palace got to win, Brighton just continue to draw against everybody. But this is one that I think, Newcastle near the bottom, and it's a shame to see. So this could be an opportunity with their fans traveling 4 hours to that match to reward their fans with a result, Jimmy.
Yeah, well, we will see. Liverpool and Brighton tied before that, and Newcastle, of course, look for their first victory. All right. And by the way, I'm sorry I didn't mention the other games on Sunday, but Leeds United played Leicester City, etc. We already mentioned the final game of that day, which is West Ham against Liverpool, and Arsenal host Watford. Claudio Ranieri against Arsenal. So we'll see with that. Well, James Bench, we say goodbye to you. Anything you want to say before we say goodbye, James Bench? Don't forget to read his great piece with Sadio Mane on CBSSports.com. James Bench, anything else before we say goodbye?
Only one other thing to promote. Got big predictions or look ahead piece on the Manchester Derby. Lots of fun stuff in there for fans of Jack Grealish about why he's actually a lot better than people say.
So one not for me then. Awesome, James Bench. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you, James Bench. We're going to take a quick break here. Qué Golazo Weekend Preview. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Weekend Preview. Qué Golazo, the American sandwich now, Peruvian meat in the middle. Jimmy Conrad, Heath Pierce, and I'm here talking about the rest of Europe, and we got some more in MLS as well. But first, okay, we talked the Premier League, but we got a big game in Serie A, which, by the way, you can watch exclusively on CBS Sports and Paramount Plus. It's AC Milan against Inter Milan. Woo, what a game. I love it. Let's begin with you, Jimmy Conrad. What a big game. A derby, finally, a big one. Serie A, obviously, Inter Milan won midweek in the Champions League. AC Milan equalized late and tied with Porto. How do you see this one?
Yeah, this is a good game. Obviously, Milan, fantastic domestically, tied on top of the table with 31 points with Napoli from 10 wins and a draw out of 11 games. That is very impressive for Stefano Pioli and his squad, but not so great in Europe, which I thought was a bit of a surprise. They lost their first 3 games, some of it a little bit unlucky. I would say that penalty that Atletico Madrid got at the San Siro to win 2-1, a little unfortunate there, maybe a little unfair, but that's how it goes at times. And then the game against Porto midweek, this week, match day 4, they needed to win to really kind of maybe look at that Europa League spot, or maybe if everything went their way, they won 3 straight, a chance to get into the knockout rounds. Not to say it was a listless performance. They did score. They made it 1-1, but I thought Porto was actually driving that game.
Yeah, totally.
In a game that felt like Milan would have some pride. They're one of the most successful teams in Champions League history. I thought there would be a little bit more. I thought the lineup would maybe reflect that. Kessié was available. He didn't start. Benacer did get fouled on that goal by Porto, but Porto was still driving the game. And I thought a draw was a fair result, all things considered. I know Milan's going to come out. Zlatan will probably start, because that's what he has to do. The guy, talk about being clutch. We know Cristiano Ronaldo is. Zlatan seems to have that clutch gene as well. I expect him to get into it, him scoring anytime, plus 120 for anybody that wants in on some Zlatan action. I think that Milan had the benefit of playing at home, and Inter Milan had to travel to Moldova to go get a result. I think that will matter a little bit. I think there are some tired legs there. But, God, it's hard. I mean, Inter Milan, haven't been completely crushing it as of late in terms, or at least let's say over the course of the season. They're not too far off of it, but this would be a big statement win for them against a Milan team that haven't lost yet. So this is a. I mean, I love all the Premier League games. Don't get me wrong. The Manchester Derby is going to be fun for some narratives, but in terms of how competitive it's going to be, I actually like this Milan derby a little bit more.
Yeah, look, the last 7 meetings between these teams have not ended in a draw, which is what I like about the two matchups here. One team has won. Actually, the away team has won 4 of those 7. And I go back to February of last year, February of this year, of last season, when Inter Milan put a thumping on AC Milan. And it was right at the time they were just out of Europe. They're rounding into form. And it was a statement win. Lautaro Martinez had 2, Lukaku had a goal, and it was just an absolute dominant performance from Inter Milan, where we saw sort of the crumble of AC Milan, who had spent a lot of the season at that point in first place in the league. And I think for now, you're seeing sort of the potential for the same storylines for AC Milan, the way that they are in Europe right now. There's an opportunity to go out, focus just on the league. Inter Milan, I think, are 7 points off the pace right now, and I could be off by a number there, but it's just an opportunity for AC Milan to do the exact same thing. Focus on a single thing, probably knocked out of Europe, have a statement win against an Inter Milan team who are just grinding through things right now. They're not exactly, pacing in the way that AC Milan are, who are on a historic start to the season. So I'm going with AC Milan on this one to win at home, to have a statement, performance. I think they've been very, very good. I think we're seeing a lot less of the holes in their team that we saw last year, where it seemed like they were riding form versus riding just the abilities and the cohesion of the group and the identity of the team. And so this is their big test. And I think if they drop these points, they fall back into that category that we saw last year, where we were all waiting for. And this team this year, they're a lot better. Zlatan again, I think, leads the way for this team, but Brahim Diaz as well, who's continued to become a better player. But I'm saying this is a win for AC Milan against Inter Milan.
Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
No, go. I want to hear your thoughts before I give out.
No, I wasn't going to say much. I was just going to emphasize the operative words there that Heath Pierce just said, which is a big test for AC Milan. And last season, even though obviously Inter took the better of them, it was in that stage when AC Milan started putting their foot of the gear. And they need to realize that when you look at Serie A right now, Napoli, 31 points, AC Milan, 31 points as well. There's a tiny bit of a window there, a bit of a gap. There's Norris here showing it on YouTube. You could see, Inter need this. But if AC Milan can take care of business, they can really keep going with that momentum. And we've said it before, right? Maybe not being in the Champions League knockout stages will be a blessing in disguise for AC Milan. Ironically enough, that's the lesson they can learn from Inter Milan last season. It's a big game for AC Milan. Inter have scored the most Serie A goals against AC Milan, while the Rossoneri have lost 67 such matches against the Nerazzurri. I just think that, like you said, Heath, I'm with you. I think home advantage, Zlatan is going to be up for this. I think Frank Kessie is going to be very important. I'm giving it to AC Milan, but Jimmy, your final points here.
Jimmy, before you say something, the one thing I wanted to add to that is, and I said this before, if AC Milan, if they look at the table there and they know they can get to 10 points by Christmas and they're going punch for punch with Napoli, that's AC Milan's title. Now, if you allow them to that gap to close and Napoli drop into those points, it turns into a real cluster, and so that's why I think they're seeing this as a must-win game, because of it's a 6-point swing and it puts them in a much better position.
And we're going against the narrative here. We're going against the narrative because Inter Milan has been we're going to bet, but we're thinking that maybe that's the way. Jimmy, what do you think?
I actually like Inter a little bit.
I knew you were going to say that. That's why we ended with it.
No.
I mean, this guy's Mike.
No. I just feel like Milan, only one clean sheet in their last 9 games. So the last 6 times that these two opponents have played against each other, 22 goals have been scored. So that's an average of 3.6 goals per game. So there's going to be some action in this one. We know that we're going to see some heroes, some narratives are going to step up. Inter have actually been pretty good. I'm looking back at their schedule. They did lose that game back in mid-October to Lazio 3-1. But a bit of a blip. Outside of that, that's their only loss in the last 11 or 12 games. They took care of Sheriff. I think they were a little unsteady in the Champions League, and I think got favorable draw, at least, to have Sheriff back-to-back games. Got them going again on there, and they should get into the knockout rounds. They also were up 1-0 on Juventus. They went up early in that game, and then Dybala scored really late. They just didn't see that one out. And then what I really like about them is that they're taking care of the teams that they should take care of. They went on the road to Empoli. They beat them 2-0. They went ahead at home against Udinese, 2-0. Then they go to Moldova and get a 3-1 win over Sheriff. I feel like they're coming in with a little bit more of an identity of how they're going to play and a little bit of confidence in that team shape. Now, this is the first Milan derby for Simone Inzaghi, the manager of Inter. And even though he's been in big derbies before, managing Lazio against Rome, the Eternal Derby, and it's not going to be that overwhelming for him, but this is a different kettle of fish. And I like the draw, to be honest. I know you guys are going to get that, but it's appealing at plus 265, even though they haven't drawn in forever.
An exciting draw, a goal scoring draw.
Yeah, this will be like a 2-2 or whatever, but I don't think this is just Milan winning straight up. They're going to be without Theo Hernandez and without Mike Mignon in goal.
Yeah, that's big.
I just don't think that, because Theo Hernandez got a red card in the previous game, I just don't think that they're as stout defensively because they don't have that number one goalkeeper between the sticks. And so I'm just throwing that out there. But when you have Zlatan in your team, Kessié comes back in, you got some incredible players for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to be a very good game. And by the way, AC Milan beats Atalanta 3-2, Verona 3-2, Bologna 4-2, Torino 1-0, Roma 2-1.
Yeah, score goals, score more than the other team. Score more than the other team,
So we will see, but it should be a really, really good one. All right, let's keep going in Serie A. We won't stay too long because we got MLS to discuss as well, but Juventus against Fiorentina. Des, put up the rest of the schedules as we focus on Juventus and Fiorentina, but there's other things that we might want to discuss, but not for too long. But let's lead the way here with Juventus against Fiorentina. Heath, Juventus, I mean, they're weird as well a little bit. The conventional wisdom of Max Allegri, obviously they make it to the knockout stages in the Champions League, but in the league, just like Barcelona, they're not looking too great. What do you think?
Yeah, winless in the last three. It's just an opportunity for them to go into this international break, quite frankly, with 3 points and end it on a positive note. Obviously, they're sitting right mid-table, just behind Verona in the league, and they need to have a win here. And it's that simple. I don't think it's necessarily the way in which they play. You're going into the international break, and we've heard a number of players discussing the international break and the complications of finding a team rhythm, especially when you're out of form, right? Because the one thing you want to do when you're not in form is to get on the training pitch and find that identity and build it through competition in the team, through camaraderie, and all of these things, have more time together. But these international breaks keep coming in. So these teams that are struggling to really find that consistency, and we saw Juventus start to get a little bit better before taking that dip. And obviously they were convincing against Zenit in the Champions League. But you want to just get that win to go into the international break, come back with sort of that W in your pocket, knowing that you're probably going to have to rotate players, not as much as you probably did when you had the triple fixture dates of the international calendar window. So for me, just going out and getting a not to say convincing, but a professional win in this game, I think sets them up going into the international break.
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch upon Juve Fiorentina as well. Maybe from Dusan Vlahovic's perspective, he is on the radar to be signed by Juve at some point, a very Bayern Munich type transfer policy where, there's a good player that competes against us. Let's steal him and put him on our team. Federico Chiesa being the latest example, also played for Fiorentina in the previous seasons and a tremendous talent for Juve and the Italian national team. Juve, for me, kind of got Everton vibes in some ways, where they're kind of just self-destructing and sabotaging themselves, where they just need to concentrate in key moments. They gave up a 94th minute goal to lose to Sassuolo at home. Didn't do well against Giovanni Simeone, who scored 2 bangers in their loss against Verona. And they gave up 2 more goals to Zenit midweek, right? So they got to figure out that side of the ball. And that's pretty crazy, given Maxi Allegri's penchant for wanting to play good defense. Now, I do want to shout out Giovanni Simeone because he's got 6 goals in his last 2 games, and they play against Napoli in Naples. Can he keep that going against the best team in Serie A on both sides of the ball? They've only given up 3 goals all season. So I'm very curious about that game. Venezia versus Roma is a little sexy too, just to see if our Americans can do it against Jose Mourinho. So we'll see if Tessman and Busio start again. That would be very cool. But I like Juve to win, both teams to score plus 225. Or if you want to go for Fiorentina, Vlahovic to score anytime plus 190. He's in great form right now.
I love it. All right, let's move on. Let's keep going here because I want to wrap up with MLS. But before that, there's El Gran Derbi in La Liga, of course, as Real Betis faces Sevilla. Should be a good one. When you look at the table, Sevilla are in 3rd, Real Betis in 5th. The point differential is really not that big. Sevilla with 24 points, 1 point under Real Sociedad, who's in 1st, and Real Betis with 21 points. Jimmy, right back to you with the betting tips, and then Heath ends it. But this is a good game, specifically because most people don't realize how big this derby is. It's a very contentious one, and it's a great one.
It is, but it's also considered one of the friendliest derbies in the world, and I appreciate that. But
Respectable derby, right?
It wasn't built on violence, Jimmy.
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine?
Imagine vibes.
That. Or tribalism, all that.
The vibe derby.
Sevilla own this rivalry, though. But Betis haven't won this derby since 2018, and the last 3 games are under 2.5 goals. So it's usually tight, but for whatever reason, I'm kind of liking the over 2.5 goals plus 140. Sevilla have only lost twice all season. Once was in the league, 1-0 away to Granada, and midweek to Lille just this past week, midweek at home after having the 1-0 lead, which was surprising because Sevilla have the best joint defense in all of La Liga. Betis lost last weekend to Atleti, and now they face Leverkusen in Germany after drawing them 1-1 on match day 3 in Spain. I think that 2 extra days of rest is pretty massive for Sevilla. And Yusuf El-Nesri is coming back into the team. Obviously, he's a force up top when healthy and ready to go. When you pair him with Lamela and Lucas Ocampos, who finally scored his second Champions League goal 7 years after he scored his first, which is a crazy stat. I like Sevilla here a little bit, and them to win straight up is plus 160. So I would take that to the bank.
I love it. I love it.
I like Sevilla in this one as well. I think we found that we saw a little bit from Real Betis against Atletico Madrid there when they took a thumping. Obviously, Sevilla's defense, Sevilla are very comfortable playing it tight for long matches. I actually seemingly like Jimmy's over 2. Just I don't really know why. Just more of a gut instinct on that because Sevilla are happy to play a 1-0 or a 2-1 and really keep it tight for long periods. But again, Betis showed some vulnerabilities in that match that I think they're a little bit fragile at the moment. And we've seen with these teams that creep near the top that sometimes it takes one thumping from a giant for them to be reminded of, hey, you've been on a great run, but you don't necessarily belong up here week in, week out. Add that to the fact that there's a derby here, and I think Sevilla take this one 2-1.
All right, let's quickly have a look at the roundup of La Liga. And obviously, again, as I mentioned, this is the last weekend before the international break, but there's some good games in La Liga, including Celta Vigo against Barcelona, Alavés against Levante, Español Granada, Athletic Club against Cadiz, Real Madrid against Rayo Vallecano. That, to me, is a nice one. South American star power there as Falcao against Vinicius Jr., etc. Villarreal, Getafe, and much more, including Valencia, Atletico Madrid. All right. Let's keep going here. Let's go to Germany.
One note before we go to Germany. Iago Aspas always scores for Celta Vigo. He always scores. Him to score anytime against Barcelona, who are a little vulnerable defensively, plus 160. Just wanted to give a shout out to the man, myth, and legend known as Iago Aspas.
No, he always scores.
Let's go to Germany. Alemania, let's go. Vamos.
No, but Celta Vigo have just won 2 of their last 9 matches in the league against Barcelona. But Iago Aspas is always a sure thing. All right, Leipzig against Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga. Jesse Marsch. Listen, a heroic point against Paris Saint-Germain, Heath Pierce, all right? But you're shaking your head a little bit. You're a bit worried about your boy. What's going on? Against Borussia Dortmund, who also lost to Ajax as well. How do you see this one?
I think it's a great opportunity coming off of a loss for Borussia Dortmund, who now took 2 hits in a row from Ajax that humbled this Borussia Dortmund side. Obviously, we saw some squad rotation in Dortmund, who are, again, going through their own injury concerns. But I said this before, and this was the Ole Gunnar moment for Jesse Marsch, right? He started against Eintracht Frankfurt, ended up with a draw, got a draw against PSG, which feels a little bit better than a point against Eintracht Frankfurt. And then it all comes down to this RB Leipzig match, because now you've got this gap after that where you then got to go and play Hoffenheim. And again, Hoffenheim aren't the same Hoffenheim that we knew of years past, but a real challenge and test for Jesse Marsch on this one, and one that I think he's probably feeling a little bit of the rumors in the hallways of this has to be a win. You have to show that of these 3 results, you have to be able to take 3 points out of these, and it's against Dortmund, right? And it's unfortunate that run of form ends with a team like Dortmund. But if there's ever a time that RB Leipzig, and by the way, RB Leipzig in Champions League, even though they don't have they have 1 point to show for it in the group, have actually looked decent for these periods. And then you see one individual mistake shows this gap of like, oh, these good teams punish those types of mistakes. And it's always this fundamental error. Obviously, Tyler Adams has been at fault for one of those in the first game against PSG. But when you look throughout the matches, they actually compete quite well. They create a number of chances. They looked comfortable, but it's just about eliminating those crucial errors. Now they're playing a Dortmund side that will also punish them, not in the way that Haaland would when he's on the field, but will punish you if you give up those crucial errors. So if they can cut those out, I actually like their odds I'm not sure what the betting tips are there, Jimmy, but I do like Leipzig's ability to be able to sneak out with 3 points against Dortmund here.
Yeah, plus 105 for them to win straight up. You could throw that into a parlay, everybody. I actually like both teams to score. Defensively, they're both sus, as the kids like to say today. And for both teams to score and Leipzig to win, plus 250 is pretty good value. Like Heath, maybe my optimism and my bias for Jesse Marsch and wanting him to be successful is in my way a little bit. But without Erling Haaland, this Dortmund team just isn't as threatening. They had Torgan Hazard, who have played the last couple matches there as the false 9 in some ways to maybe create some numerical advantages in midfield and pull out those defenders. Daniel Malen kind of in and out. He was the big signing from PSV, and he can stretch the defense a little bit. So maybe he starts if they identify some very young and inexperienced center backs. I mean, again, I kind of bang this drum a lot about Jesse Marsch, but he lost his 2 starting center backs and his best holding midfielder to different teams in the transfer window. That's just not easy to replace. Now, I'm a big fan of Simicon. I think he's a good young defender, but he's still young. Guardiola, still another young defender. You got Willie Orban, who got a midweek injury, so now there's another defender that's out. Klosterman's probably still out. Halstenberg is still probably out. Gulacsi hasn't been that great between the sticks today or for them this season. So there are some concerns. So I think this could be a little bit of a run and gun, but I feel like getting that last gasp goal against PSG will give them a little bit of finally a little something win our way. And now I feel like whoever scores that first goal could really kind of dictate how this goes. But there's going to be a lot of goals in this one, and I hope it tips to RB Leipzig. So take this into consideration when I'm giving my betting tips that I like RB Leipzig to win and both teams to score plus 250, but I'm just pulling for Jesse Marsch so hard that's probably clouding my judgment a little bit.
I will say, Jimmy, if you're Jesse Marsch, you go into that situation, you go, hey, this wasn't the Red Bull system before. Remember when we used to have under 23 players and everybody wanted them, and we go, hey, we're RB Leipzig. We don't need to sell anybody. We'll keep them as long as you want.
Right.
Well, now you're selling everybody, and you're not giving me anyone. That's a tough situation to be in. So hopefully,
I think I'm with you. I'm a big Jesse Marsch fan, but they're 8th in the Bundesliga, 15 points. Right? It's just not good enough. It's not good enough.
All right, tell me what you're thinking, and I'll tell you what the odds are.
I think Borussia Dortmund's going to win this game. They got
both teams to score, or just
no? Yeah, I think. Listen, one of the things that I'm thinking specifically about this game is that because both of them are just as good offensively, but obviously RB Leipzig still not as good. But if you can definitely guarantee one thing is they're going to concede. So I see a Borussia Dortmund 2-1 win.
I see it to flip on the other side. I see a 2-1 for RB Leipzig, both teams to score. Jesse Marsch to get a new contract.
Energized by the home support as well, because I think that is also an important part of
that's plus 400. Dortmund to win, both teams to score plus 400, plus 230 if you want Dortmund to win straight up.
All right, we'll take your pick, everybody. I mean, that's what it is. All right, so we are going to wrap up and return to North America because it's a huge day this weekend. Major League Soccer wraps up its regular season as they get ready for the postseason and, of course, the playoffs. And it's MLS Decision Day. So a few things, by the way. Let's look at the standing because if you're not aware of MLS, you got the Eastern Conference and the Western. So let's go to the East first. Still in the hunt, Atlanta United, who should be okay, but you don't want to tempt fate. Orlando, Red Bulls, Montreal, DC and Columbus. Some key matches to watch out. Montreal against Orlando. Nashville, by the way, on the cusp of going full season unbeaten at home as they face the Red Bulls. And if we look at the West, when we look at the Western Conference, the teams that are looking to be in the hunt, Minnesota, Vancouver, LA Galaxy, Salt Lake. LAFC need a lot of things to go their way, Heath Pierce, but they are technically in the hunt. And the key matches, of course, LA Galaxy against Minnesota and Vancouver against the Sounders, or just obviously another season where they continue to kill it. Heath Pierce, how do you feel? Go anywhere you want, man. You can go to your LAFC first if you want.
Heath, you take the Western Conference. I'll take the East.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Heath, you go West, Jimmy will go East.
By the way, just for everybody who's not tuning in weekly, we get it. The Western Conference does not only have teams that are in the West.
We don't need no angry emails.
Okay, we get it. There's a lot of teams in the league. They got to go somewhere. It doesn't always make sense. All right, so let's move on from that. But Real Salt Lake had a huge opportunity to make the playoffs, and they got thumped midweek against the Portland Timbers, who are very, very good and in great form right now. That's helped keep this playoff chase alive. Obviously, the key matches on that side, Galaxy playing against Minnesota, both of those have implications of sort of winning you're in. And then on the second matchup in that one is Vancouver playing Seattle. Seattle took a hit again against LAFC that kept their hopes alive. And now LAFC have to win against Colorado, and just a bunch of things have to happen and fall in place. So it's pretty much a situation for the teams that are above the line there, Vancouver, Minnesota, LA Galaxy, that you have to win. You have to win those matches and you're in the playoffs. And that makes it a really exciting time, that it's not just going to be a bunch of teams that are looking to draw and secure themselves a spot. You got to win to stay in, and other things have to happen in your way in the Western Conference. It's still wide open for those final two spots.
Also, I just want to say that I'm gutted for Real Salt Lake. All they had to do was win at home against the Portland Timbers on Wednesday, and they blew it. They lost 3-1. So now they got to go to Sporting Kansas City, who are one of the best teams in the league, and try to get a result on the last day. Good luck with that. Now,
I think it was 3-0, by the way, at halftime for RSL.
Exactly. So, yeah. I mean, talk about not showing up when it matters. So we'll see if they can get the job done in Kansas City, where they don't have a great record. Now, over the Eastern Conference, only 3 spots remain for 6 clubs. Atlanta's 48 points, Orlando 48 points, New York 47. So they've got the 3 as of right now. But Montreal have 46, DC United have 44, and Columbus have 44. Obviously, DC and Columbus need some help to make that happen. What I think is really crazy is Montreal will host Orlando City. So whoever wins that game clinches a spot for the playoffs, and that's what I'm here for. I love that one a lot. If it's a draw, Orlando will make it at Montreal's expense, okay? And then the Red Bulls travel to second place Nashville, as Luis said, have not lost at home all season. And then both Columbus and DC need to win and hope that other results go in their favor in a big way. It's crazy. I love this time of year. I love MLS Decision Day, and I'm very excited for the MLS playoffs this season.
Absolutely. I'm giving an extra little bit of love for Orlando City and Pedro Galese. Let's see what happens there. But listen, here's a question for you. Just looking ahead after Decision Day, both of you, please answer. Heath, obviously, New England remains the utmost favorite. The table doesn't lie, is my question, basically, and the Sounders as well on the other side.
Yeah, Sounders not. I mean, this is the problem with the Sounders, is they're not in great form right now. However, the Sounders have never really been in great form going into the playoffs, but they're a playoff team. They know exactly what to do when they buckle down. They're happy to play ugly. They're happy to scrap it out. They have enough mature players on the field that know what playoff implications are, and that's why they take it to teams that are probably in better form going into the playoffs. So I would give them that as a playoff team. They're one of the best playoff teams in history that don't always match up with the identity of perhaps their form going into the playoffs. And then obviously with New England, I wouldn't usually give them that, but Bruce Arena is just a magician in the way that he can motivate these teams. And so this could be their year. And it's tough to have done what they've done. I think at times they look at their squad and they go, I don't know how we've done it either. But it's certainly the type of form. But Jimmy knows, like, so little of regular season form. I mean, you want to have that form going into the playoffs, but so little of it really matters in the playoffs. It's about understanding the matchups. It's about being conscientious of how to play these types of matchups. So I guess what I'm saying, Luis, is I agree with you that those are the 2 teams that I would have. But Colorado are really good too. And again, Greg Vanney's done Robin Fraser. I'm talking about 2 guys that were coaches of Jimmy and I's in one season. Robin Fraser's done a good job of motivating that group of players that isn't a star team either. And on set pieces, when you get into the playoffs, could really be the difference maker.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare in MLS history to have the 2 number 1 seeds from each conference actually make the final. So the teams that I'm looking at from the East, even though I think New England will get there for all the points that he said, and Bruce Arena, tremendous manager. New York City FC and Atlanta United are 2 teams I would not want to face in the playoffs, just because they have the talent and individual talent to turn a game on a dime. And that's what you need. And playoff games get real tight. Just like a Champions League game gets real tight, and you need that one moment of magic. And I feel like those 2 teams in particular have those magic players to win a game by themselves. Over in the West, I'd probably echo the sentiments about Colorado Rapids. Going to be very tough to play against. The Timbers have started to find a little bit of form going into the playoffs. Vancouver really turning things around as well. So it's the crappy part about MLS Cup playoffs. If you find someone that's just kind of hit the hot hand at the right time, they could go on a run and have a good 3 weeks to win the title, which feels a little unfair. As we've discussed many times, I feel like the trophy should go to the team that's the best over 10 months and not 3 weeks. But that's a conversation for another time, everybody.
No, it's a good point. Momentum, a massive protagonist in MLS. And by the way, your point about NYCFC, they've scored 55 goals, the second most in the East after, of course, the machine that is New England. But that's MLS. All right, before we say goodbye, do you expect any surprises on Sunday? Anything that's going to be like, oh, man, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think Orlando City is going to completely get squeaky
Shit
on
the bed.
time. Yeah, and Montreal is going to get the win. They're playing at home with everything to play for. I think they're going to be up for it, and I do think that they're going to leapfrog Orlando City and get in the playoffs. Sorry, Orlando City fans.
Jimmy, geez Louise, just upsetting people. I think the big surprise for me is well, obviously there's already implications in these games, but I'm talking about LA Galaxy, who were really hot to start the season. I don't know if you remember Chicharito, 10 goals in his first 7 games, something like that, have sort of been hit or miss in these last matches. They've now got to go and get a result at home against Minnesota. I could see them falling out and them dropping out of the playoff race. And that's not just because of, any sort of loyalty or ties to LAFC. I think that LA Galaxy have really left it late. And if they've dug deep in their last few matches, but this could be the one that's a little too far. Results go the wrong way and they find themselves below the line.
Yeah, well, in MLS, it would be a shame to see neither LA team in the playoffs, but it is what it is. Heath Pierce can still hang out with Will Ferrell and maybe get a gig in the next movie. Yeah, so that's exactly why I said it. All right, well, that's it. That's our weekend preview. Before we say goodbye, final thoughts. Jimmy Conrad.
I've got none. There's so many great games. I want to lay down and take a nap. I just want to lay down and take a nap now, so I'm ready to go because I got to be up at 5 a.m. to do the Manchester Derby. I mean, I got to watch it. I have to watch it for the narratives, for the vibes.
Yep.
For the vibes. Heath Pierce.
Yeah, same thing. I've got a long day on Saturday doing some youth grassroots clinic stuff. So fortunately, I'll get to watch the game because I got to get up early. It's the only window I have to watch some of those early games before having to go back and rewatch. So yeah, that's my only thoughts. I'm excited. What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive. We're excited to have Jimmy Conrad and Heath Pierce as part of the show. James Bench as well, of course. But Jimmy and Heath, of course, will also be doing a lot of work next week as the USMNT return to action. They face Mexico and Jamaica, but plenty more content, including our weekend recap and so much more. By the way, I want to thank all of you for being part of Qué Golazo. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Qué Golazo Pod. We are also on, where else are we on? Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, CBS Sports, and your CBS Sports app. I'm going to go live on Sunday with Jimmy to recap the action. Make sure to join us. That's all the call to actions I have, really. Just keep following us, keep loving us, keep smashing that like button. It's the only way we can keep those lights up. Thank you so much. Have a great, great weekend. We'll see you next time.